Hi guys, welcome back. Today I am going to work on this, which is week 19 in my 2022 Project Life album, and I am going to use another stash kit. But this stash kit I put together a little bit differently than usual. Let me explain how. Over on Instagram, I asked what your least favorite and most favorite crafty supply is, and I'm going to use the top 3 and the bottom 3 to put together my stash kit and work with that today. So let me guide you through my kit here. The number 1 crafty supply easily was pattern paper. So I just went and grabbed a 6x6 paper pad. This is the Lucky Me 6x6 from Rosie Studios. I loved the bright colors. I also loved some of the kind of bolder patterns in here, the stripes. The other thing that was most used, and I'm going to round out this sort of category to embellishments as die cuts. So I have grabbed my pack of ephemera from Pink Fresh Studio. This is just a little lovely. And again, I loved the kind of brighter colors in here. We're dealing with another autumn week of photos here, so a little bit darker, a little bit duller. I want to pep things up a little bit. And my last most used was Puffy Stickers. Now these ones are from Amy Tangerine. I can't remember the name of the collection. I've had them for a very long time and I've hardly ever used them, but they felt quite autumnal to me, so I'm going to add them into the kit today. Now the least used, the bottom 3 for the stash kit are wood veneer, which I gotta say, it's on my bottom too. You all know I hardly ever use wood veneer, so I went through my pretty diminished stash because I did have a pretty good clear out at the start of the year for just crafty supplies that I don't use, and wood veneer was one of those ones that just went. It went. I never use it. I kept a few kind of basic shapes like hearts. I think these ones are from Citrus Twist, but they are very, very old. I kept a few little wood veneers I don't use a whole lot of, but I picked out this change because I thought it worked with the change of seasons. And I've kept a few kind of alpha wood veneers, and I'm going to use this wee ampersand today. So wood veneer was on the bottom of the list, as was washi tape. And again, I kind of agree with this. I hardly ever use washi tape. Today I'm going to hopefully use at least one of these, but I picked out a few that just kind of coordinate with the patterns and the colors that I've picked out so far. And the third, and I wholeheartedly agree with this as well, is another generalization, mixed media. So one of the reasons I don't use mixed media a lot in my project life is just because of the amount of time involved. So when I sit down to do a project life, especially a project life video for you guys, I don't want to sit here forever putting together a page. So waiting for things to dry just isn't in my allotted time span. So mixed media is something that I don't use a lot, but I'm challenging myself today. So I have already gone ahead and done some mixed media. I'm going to insert a little shot here for you. But basically, I just went the very, very easy route of mixed media and used some of my, they're pretty new to me, Distress Oxide inks. I've only just become a fan, and I'm using kind of the packaging technique just to pop a little bit of color onto some of these plain 4x6 cards. This is just white textured cardstock. I haven't prepped it in any way. I just trimmed down a 12x12 sheet into 4x6 cards and then went to town with all the colors. So that was done well in advance because I have waited for them to dry, and I have a few to work with here. I've kind of got my fingers crossed that at least one of them might work with some of the colors and patterns that I pull out for my project today. So those are my 6 most loved and least loved craft supplies. And then I had a little challenge to put into here for you, because stamps, and you know I'm a lover of stamps, came out both in the most loved and the least used. So at least a 50-50 split of people who love them and people who don't love them. And I'm here to tell you, I want you to love them. So I've picked out a few stamp sets to use. My main tip for stamps on a project life is just not to get overwhelmed with buying all the stamps. If you are not a stamp person, pick up a kind of more generic set. So one with maybe a lot of words. Words are not hard to add into Project Life. We're adding them anyway. So rather than, you know, icons or backgrounds, maybe pick up a word set. I also love ones with kind of a mix of both. This is a old set from Fed Your Craft. This is a fairly newer set from Citrus Twist. But I love here that I've got a mix of cameras. It's not hard to add cameras. I could add a camera icon every week in Project Life because here I am taking photos. So cameras, even just generic shapes that you could add into backgrounds or create patterns from, and then words that you know you're going to use again and again. So captured, snapshot, highlights, all of these kind of generic terms, so they don't have to be specific. If you're anything like me and have a massive stamp collection, you can get pretty specific. I've got seasonal stamps I could use, I've got food stamps I could use, I've got drink stamps I could use, I've got dog stamps I could use. You get the picture. But if you're just starting out or you don't really love stamps, maybe invest in a kind of more generic one. The other type of set I love is one that has numbers. This is a set from Kelly Stamps, a routine, which also works well for my daily life. There is a lot of routine in there. My main tip is just to grab one that you know that you're going to use more than once. So now we've got my supplies, I'm going to get cracking.
Okay, so I'm going to start by pulling out some of these pattern papers. I'm not 100% sure on kind of the color scheme, but I know that I probably want to use one or two of those mixed media cards. And so I'm really just pulling out papers based on the colors I love more than anything. There's kind of a bit of color in my photos. There's a sort of a blue. It is a grey sky, but it looks blue on here. So a blue sky, and I've got a pink drink. So I'm kind of going with those colours. I'm going to throw in some orange just as a nod to autumn here. And that's really kind of how it's going to go. So in the end, I decided to use the two pink mixed media cards, mainly because they were kind of the lighter of the mixed media cards that I had made. The rest of them were quite bright and in your face, which I don't like hate, but because I'm putting a lot of stuff on this spread, I kind of wanted to keep those cards a little bit on the lighter side. So this is kind of just a fun challenge for myself, but it is a lot more stuff than I would usually put on a Project Life spread. There's a whole lot of embellishment going on here. It's just one of those weeks. I'm going to embrace it, and maybe next week I'll be super minimal to kind of balance it out, but there's going to be a lot going on. Now, I went through that die cut pack first before I kind of committed to cutting down any of those papers. I want to just get something in the bag before I decide like how much the rest of the spread is going to have on it. So I started with this 4x6 card because it's going to hold all of my journaling. I'm going to create a little cluster down on this. This is kind of the corner where most of the mixed media is, and so I want to tone that into the entire card by adding just a few of those little die cuts. The ones that I had pulled out were all kind of like, I'm going to keep calling it autumnal. They were orange and yellow and a little bit of pink. So to kind of balance that out with the rest of the colors in my spread, I did use a bit of washi tape in a blue. But what I did was go back into my washi stash and pull out some more blue washies. The original one that I had picked wasn't quite the right tone. I'm not calling it a cheat in any way, shape or form. I just wanted some different blue washies. I added that into the background before I went ahead and stuck down all those die cuts. And then I decided, well, I've got some wood veneer to use, so I'm going to add a little wood veneer heart on there as well. So I was super happy with how that card came out. I love the way that that mixed media kind of just falls into the background. It's not quite so like in your face. So I'm going to attempt to do a very similar thing with the title card for this week. The mixed media like the main splat is on the opposite corner on this card. So I'm really just kind of reversing everything. I'm going to add just one simple die cut, one floral die cut. I had pulled that out for that changed card, but the changed card doesn't need two. So I picked the littlest one for my title card. And before I went ahead and stuck down those wood veneer hearts, I grabbed out an alpha stamp. An alpha stamp is another one that I would definitely recommend for Project Life. I have a bunch of them, but if you only want to grab one, I suggest grabbing one that's got two different weights in it. This is the Bailey Thick and Thin Alpha from Citrus Twist, and it's just nice having those two different weights of the same font. So I've stamped that in black because there are a few little black spots on my photos this week, so I'm going to add a bit of black into the layout, especially with stamping. You don't have to have a million different colored inks. Black will do fine for most of the time. It is my #1 stamping ink, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and stick down a few of those little wood veneer hearts. I created a wee visual triangle on that one particular card and then added in a couple of the smaller ones before I moved on to my 3x4 cards. And I decided to start with this kind of filler card. I don't want to make it like too much of a drama though, so I really am just sticking down that die cut, and I added the wood veneer on top. I'm just using tape runner for all of this wood veneer. I've never had an issue with it, so I'm gonna stick with that. I forgot about the puffy stickers though, so I'm gonna start adding some puffy stickers in here. I changed my mind 3 times with this puffy sticker. In the end, I went for a little woolen hat, since that goes with my whole autumnal theme. But there was a black and grey hat, and I ended up changing it for this kind of purpley maroon colored hat, just because it had a blue pom-pom on it, and I'm trying to add a few pops of blue wherever I can. Like on this card, for instance. I'm going to stack up a couple of these die cuts. It kind of, the way that they stack means that my photo is going to be pushed up into the top left hand corner, and that isn't usually where I would put my photo. I normally try to center it, but just to fit these die cuts in the way I want them to fit, I want them to kind of overlap, and the Just Us kind of has to sit on the bottom right so that it doesn't cover up Lil's face. And so I'm going to switch things up a bit and just move that photo off to the top left, and I added another one of those puffy stickers. I remembered that it had a wee dog's paw puffy sticker on there, so I've added that in as well. I've got one more 3x4 card, and I'm going to end up doing the same sort of thing with this one as well. The photo isn't going to be where it usually is. I'm doing kind of the opposite of the other 3x4 card. So I'm going to put my embellishment at the top of the card rather than the bottom this time. So since I talked about that little camera stamp, I'm going to add the little camera stamp in. I really love it. It is one of my favorites. But just because if I had the stamp at the bottom, I would have covered up too much of it for it to kind of be recognizable as a camera. So instead, I'm putting it at the top and just creating the embellishment cluster up there. So I pulled off one of these die cuts off one of the other photos before, but it kind of fits this one better now that I'm stamping the camera. And again, I'm going to add a little pop of blue there with this blue little cup. I just struggled to find somewhere to put it, and in the end I popped it underneath on top of the photo. So I've pretty much got my 3x4s done. I had pulled out this Precious Moments die cut for this photo, and I really liked it. I was going to have to cut off bits of either side. It didn't quite fit on the 3x4 card. So in the end, I decided it would have been a little bit much. I've just swapped that out with one of those other stamps. Now I stamp directly onto my photos because I print at home on Canon Photo Glossy 2 paper. It's designed to absorb ink. That's how it prints the photo. And so it works perfectly well just to go ahead and stamp directly on top of that paper. It sucks in the ink. It dries almost straight away. I've never had any issues with it. It's one of my favorite things about printing at home. So the first 4x6 photo, I kept it real simple. I added one of the little die cuts and then stamped the word today above it. And now for my little cocktail and crafting evening that I had, I decided that I would go back into my stamp stash and get a little bit more specific. I wanted a crafting stamp set and I wanted a food and drink stamp set. I'm going to combine 2 sentiments from each of those stamp sets. One of them, I'm going to cut the bottom word off it. It said eat, drink, and be merry, I think, but I cut off be merry. I've got eat, drink, and get messy. So I'm combining that little wood veneer ampersand with the 2 different stamp sets to create my own sentiment that I just popped directly onto the photo in the blank space. So this is something you're not going to see happen very often in project life. I'm pretty much a once and done kind of girl, but I really didn't love the gold washi tape on my title card. It was kind of the closest to yellow or orange that I had pulled out, but it really did stick out like a sore thumb. There's no gold on the rest of the spread, so I decided to replace it. I don't redo things very often, but this is one instance that I'm really glad I did. I dug a bit deeper into the stash and found the perfect little yellow washi, so I replaced that. And again, brilliant thing with washi, if you make a mistake, it just peels straight off. Not even a problem on top of that mixed media. I've remembered that I forgot to add my date stamp, so I got to add that in, and that is this week finished. This was a super fun challenge, guys, and I hope I have given you a few ideas for using some of your most favorite and least used craft supplies on your project life spread. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, I'm going to leave a couple of videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you really soon. Bye now.